there is a misconception that with women's empowerment and women's liberation, that it's all about like how we want to say things, when we want to say things, like I do what I want, when I want. And if you can't meet me there, then like, forget you, type of thing. But what I've experienced and what I've seen in with so many of the people that I have supported over the years is that our personal liberation is just the beginning of liberation. Only when we feel like, okay, this is who I am. I have the space, the freedom to express myself and to not necessarily even show my partner every single little thing that I'm thinking as I'm thinking it, but we develop a deeper discernment and we ground deeper into ourselves to be able to see beyond our personal liberation and see what will liberate the union. And so also it's kind of like tapping into that inner oracle and being able to see that vision and feel it like on a soul level. And also learning to distinguish between, getting out of your comfort zone and sacrificing yourself, because a lot of that happens in that space.
This is a great place that we're in here with this. I think seeing beyond just yourself in your own liberation and liberating the relationship. I mean, that's the me versus we conversation when it comes to a relationship dynamic of thinking about the whole instead of just thinking about yourself. How does that shift begin to happen? Or does somebody need to go through a very me-centric liberation before they get to the we? Like, what is that like?
Yeah, actually, that's the very next thing that I would love to dive into is there is, I do see a trend, there tends to be kind of this path of expansion, that there is a period where we need to be more me-centric, because if you think about this, most adults are just children in adult bodies. And we haven't really reached that level of spiritual or emotional maturity to be able to really hold ourselves, let alone be in relationship with someone without putting it all on them. And so I know that for me, actually within my marriage, I'm so grateful that I got to do this. In that period of my life, I got to discover my wild side and be more me focused and kind of go into my womb cave and just fully immerse myself in like mysteries and all the rage and all the, and bring that to the table. I grew so much from just making that a practice of giving myself space and permission to be me-centered. And from that space, I learned how to really be in service to love instead of just to like my ego, fleeting things that I need to say this right now. And, cause that, and I love that monster in me. I love her, but sometimes she just needs to kind of chill for a bit and wait for me to come back. And so
it totally makes sense. Yeah. And I think that time to spend with yourself is important to get to know yourself, and then moving that into a liberating the union. I love that you mentioned that. Can you speak more to that and what that even looks like? Because there's a lot of talk about self-liberation, personal liberation, liberating yourself. Like there's so much me-centricness to a lot of the Instagram stuff. And it's like, well, what does liberating the union actually look like?
Yeah. And also I will say that the fact that we're seeing so much of the me-centric liberation, that's just where we are at collectively. That's where we're at. So I think it's a beautiful and very important step in the process that we can't really skip over. It's like, it's just part of the process. So I see that as progress, that we're seeing this. Now we don't want to get just kind of stuck in that place. So I don't think that we will. I don't think it's possible for us to get stuck there because there's enough activation happening in this space of union. People are coming back home to themselves. People are recognizing the importance of coming into union with themselves and with the source and not expecting their partner to complete them. So I am seeing a big shift happening. But as people are doing that, I feel like it's kind of an organic thing that happens. They start to realize that, oh, okay, I don't need to go to such an extreme anymore to give this part of myself space to be seen because she's integrated now. She's a part of who I am. And so now, like, what else is there? Like, what am I expanding into now? And I am coming across a lot of women and men who increasingly are looking for, what is this thing? Like, there's something bigger than me. And so I feel like part of this does happen organically. but also with so many relationships having come to an end in this past year with a lot of these big collective shifts and so many people coming into new relationships, they are literally experiencing a new model of relationship that they're like, what is this? Like, I can't grasp what this is. And so I feel like it's happening organically right now.
I see that. And what does that next step then look like, feel like, that we're moving into, do you see?
Well, very practically, I think in the moment, let's say that I am having a moment, right? I call it a moment. I'm having a moment. Maybe it's 5 days before my period starts. Maybe I'm just having a moment. Like, yeah, I'm having my moment. And instead of just biting his head off and be like, hey, you know what, like you did this thing and it like upset me. Like, yes, I have learned the value of communicating my grievances and my frustrations. And by this point, I have also learned that there is a lot of value in going deeper into myself first and just sitting with that. And he can tell when something's up. And I'll be like, you know, are you okay? Yes, I'm just working through my process. And there's a trust there that each other works through their process. But in that moment, it might look like that. It might look like sitting in the discomfort of having space when you have previously felt that space equals abandonment or space equals unsafety. And so you notice these things as they come up and you see beyond yourself. And you're not replacing seeing the other person instead of seeing yourself. You're seeing a greater vision. So this really requires you to tap into something deeper. For me, there's this vision that I feel like I was seeded years ago of this collective union. And so that's why my work has been so focused on that, even through the divorce, through the heartbreak, through all the different challenges. It's still like that vision remains. And so I think that people have to kind of be awakened to that vision too. Otherwise, they will just make it about the other person instead of themselves. And then they'll be resentful and then they'll abandon themselves.
Right. That's so beautiful. And I love the vision that you cast there of that. And that's really what's available. And I think in all the liberation work, it just seems so beautiful to me to focus on liberating the relationship from whatever's showing up and liberating the union. I don't know, I just think it's a really important focus, because that also includes you and that also includes your partner. And it really is we-centric instead of me, and this is what's showing up for me, and I this is what I'm dealing with, and you're also being able to be with other in that as well. It's just like an evolved version of liberation. So I really don't have anything to say other than this just excites me, because I'm like, yes, we need more of that.
Yes, like it's time. And this is the age of Aquarius and whatever. Like, but that's what it's about. It's about the we. How do we bring the power of me into the we? And that doesn't mean, again, like, because our brains are so, they tend to just put binary thinking. We tend to think like it's either you or it's me, but it's not anymore. Like we're at a point now where we're shifting into this really grasping how to move through life in a more we-centered way, while also being so connected with ourselves that we can recognize when something is potentially self-abandoning. And so that's another thing, is we've got to be willing to walk away, not expecting to walk away, but willing to go wherever love guides us. Because ultimately the thing that's being liberated is not just you, not just the other person, not just the relationship, but what's being liberated is love. So you are letting that through more.
And before we started recording, you mentioned you're doing a lot of work right now on how do you expand in love and in the connection with other without abandoning yourself. So could you speak a little bit more to that? Because I also think that that's a very juicy topic, and something that I've even gone through multiple seasons of my life.
Yes, and this is something too that you really start to grasp it when you're in the practice of it. And so, it's nice in theory. For anyone though, relating in any way, listening to this, not just romantically, but like you have a challenging sibling or a rocky relationship with a parent or a friendship that is like kind of on the rocks. or even a neighbor, you can practice these things just in relating, period. But yeah, again, taking it back to this discernment between getting out of our comfort zones and abandoning our hearts. And for us to be able to know the difference, we have to really be in tune with our hearts. Otherwise, we're just in our head, intellectualizing things, logically deciding what makes more sense in this situation, for me to do what you want to do or for us to do, what I want to do. And that misses the deeper invitation that's actually always there. Of like, hey, are we going to lay in bed this morning and just like hang out and maybe I'll, we'll see where this goes. Or maybe we'll just like be in like a prayer space together. There's no agenda. It's just kind of like what serves love best in this moment. And this might ruffle some feathers for the women, but what I have seen and what I really deeply feel like in my bones and in just like the core of my being is that the feminine heart of each of us, right? We all have it. It just so happens that collectively, right, women do embody more of this feminine energy. It doesn't mean that men don't have feminine energy, that there are more men more connected with their feminine energy. But, just to make this simple, a lot of women are also coming into this remembrance of themselves as the vision holder. Whereas for so long, it's like, why do I have to be the one who keeps coming back to the vision and reminding him like, hey, no, this is where we're going. This is what I've been shown, when he's in his logical mind thinking about what needs to be done right here now. And so now they're coming to a place of remembering, like, and myself included, like, oh, this is my gift. This is a gift that I bring into the relationship and to myself. Why would I resent that? And that's a really important piece of like, what do we contribute? What unique gifts do we contribute to our specific unique relationships that maybe we have resistance around because we feel like there's this, for me, what I call like this more wounded maiden part that's like, but I don't want to have to do it. I just want him to do it. I don't want to tend to my happiness. I want him to make me happy. And I do see that a lot in women collectively, to be fair.
Yeah, it's there. And it's the same in a lot of times, the same context of like, well, I want the man to initiate everything. And it's like, sometimes as a man, I don't want to initiate, and it'd be nice to have the woman initiate. But I get the framing of, okay, well, this is what the masculine does. And I think all the masculine, feminine stuff is great in its own way, but it can cause more problems than it solves in my experience.
More separation.
Exactly. Because it's, this is the role, that this is how it's supposed to work, versus like, what's the gift you're bringing to the relationship, as you're saying.
Yeah. And that really robs us of the opportunity to just be human. Because every man, and especially when I started coaching men some years ago, it was so eye-opening, because I realized it wasn't just like my partner. It wasn't just my dad, like my brother. It was like, this was a theme amongst men. Like, they felt so much pressure to be this like masculine, have it all together, be able to hold space for her, withstand her emotional storms, not take it personally, stay regulated in their nervous system, plan the dates, do the things, initiate sex, initiate like romantic gestures. And it's just not real life, guys. It's just not that is one big gift that I did get from being in such a long marriage. And even now in the word I'm in now, is that you're too human. You're two imperfect, but perfectly designed humans, exactly as you are. And you are together for a purpose that's higher than your own, than what you're aware of. So what is it that you're meant to not just heal through together, but create, like birth into the world? Because there's a unique imprint for each partnership and each relationship. And if you don't give each other the space to be human, and just like, let's say I'm having a moment and I need like my masculine support system, and he's having a moment and he needs space, then that part of me that fears abandonment would be super triggered. Like, you can't show up for me, then you can't be my person, And it's like, guys, give each other some grace. And there's a difference between a recurring pattern where someone really does demonstrate to you that they're not available for what your vision in the partnership. There's a difference between that and then just giving each other grace to be human and communicating through it.
hmm Which is really important
There's a
too.
lot there.
There's a lot. There's
Yeah.
a lot there. I want to put a pause on this because
There's so much sometimes.
we're on the cliff. We're about to go deep, but before we go deep, I've had a question that's just really uh, unique to you, and that is, what space do you go to when you're creating Instagram content? Because we've got a similar vibe, and I just love your posts. And I was like, damn, like what are you
Yeah.
doing? Because I have my own creative process, but I'm curious about yours. And if y'all haven't followed her,
Well,
by the way, or
I
checked
want
out
to
her
hear that as
stuff,
well.
show notes down below. I'll share mine, but yeah, we'll share. We'll share.
Sometimes I could just be just like sitting, just sitting. Now I will say this. Okay, let me preface this with this. So yeah, you see what the journey has been to this point. I didn't always do it this way. For about, I want to say 3 years, maybe from in 2019 it started. I made a commitment to myself to show up every day, publicly, because I felt like that was a big part of my personal growth journey. That was a spiritual practice for me, and it still is. And so every day at about the same time, I would sit and just be and be like, okay, what do you got for me, universe? And there would always be something. And it didn't have to be something super deep or inspirational, but even just like, here's what I'm feeling into today. Or here's my pole dancing journey, because or my music artistry journey. And I just showed up every day that year. And then when COVID happened, I just started to get a little more edgy with it and just be a little more silly and just give less fucks. I was like, you know what? I'm stuck in this house with 4 kids. Like, I'm gonna make what I want to make, damn it. I started doing inner child skits and like shadow work things on TikTok. And, but so that was a consistent, here's the space, basically masculine containment, right? And within that, what wants to be created, what wants to flow, without the pressure that I have to make something, but just giving it space to come through. Today, what happens is it just drops in like little nuggets throughout my daily life. Sometimes if I'm feeling extra inspired and and then it just comes in different ways. So, in other contexts. So I think the main thing is like when you're open, when your heart is open, when your vessel is open. Also, I'm a big advocate of a daily self-pleasure practice. So that is actually where I have had the most of my potent ideas for the last like 5 years. But now it's not contained to that space. So it's like I stay in that place of being connected to pleasure and ease and flow and inspiration. So I can be cooking eggs and I get something pop in. So that's the deeper thing I want to share for anyone who's like, oh, I want to be more in my flow. It's just, what can you do on a daily practice?
I can relate so much to that. Like, I got started almost over 10 years ago now, and I made a video every day. This is before live streaming, for anything. I posted a video in a Facebook group every single day for a year. And that was what got me comfortable on camera. And then just being a group fitness instructor, getting in front of people was like second nature. And so I broke all my like camera shyness, what are people going to think stuff a while ago. And what it is now, after many iterations and also taking time off of posting every day and stuff, is very similar to what you shared, where it just drops in. Like, I'll be on a walk, I'll be driving my car, something will, literally a quote will just drop into my brain. And I'm like, oh my God, it's great. And I just write it down. And I write all the things down. And sometimes my creative flow is before my workouts. And so I sit in my car a little bit longer, and I'm in the parking lot, I'm jamming to some music, and that's the space that I'm like, is anything here? And I'll journal out some stuff. I'll also find some images or whatever and start piecing things together. And that's also, as you mentioned, the container for which what's present gets to show up. And that's where my best stuff has come from. So I was just curious as somebody who is in that journey as well.
Well, and that's a good example of the inner union as well, because you're not just like, it'll just whatever, whenever it comes, but it's being consciously more in tune with that and creating some space for it. So when I kind of feel that like coming in, I'm like, okay, hold on, let me sit down and just like, what else?
Yeah, that's awesome. Well, let's jump off this cliff and go a little bit deeper. Yeah, because we were about to talk about some deeper stuff there around around abandonment, around communication, around, partnership. I guess to start us off on this conversation, what's your perspective on manifesting the right partner or being with the right partner or even discernment in that regard?
Yeah. Oh, that's a lot. Okay, let me see. I'm going to pick one thing that feels most alive. I feel like the most important thing to emphasize right now, right off the bat, is that a lot of times people will shame themselves for what they attract as if it's their fault. Like, oh, I attracted another unavailable partner. I attracted another dishonest partner. Are there any good men left? I do hear this quite a lot. And I will tell you, yes, there are good men left. And you will attract what you are a match to. So I believe that every relationship is valuable. Now, I don't believe that you have to learn these lessons in, let's say, an abusive relationship, but also that even the relationships that, let's say, someone recently who was like on her, I don't even remember, fourth or something relationship of the same kind. And she's like, I thought I did the healing around this. I thought I was ready for an emotionally available, honest man who wasn't entangled in anyone else's energy. And she's like, but that's why I attracted it again. What's wrong with me? And it's like, you know what? There are still gifts in that for you. If this is still what you're matching to, there's something there, not like a lesson that you got to learn and like transcend necessarily, but there's something there that you didn't quite complete over here. And so it's still for you. So I wouldn't say like that was a mistake. That was a gift. Now, I think that sometimes also we're so afraid as just human beings of making the wrong decision and picking the wrong partner that it's our withholding of love in general, not withholding our being obsessed with someone or like being fully committed, but just like withholding the flow of love that keeps us in this fear space that actually project into that relationship the really painful stuff. I don't know if I communicated that in a way that makes sense. Does that make sense?
Mm-hmm. It made sense to me. Yeah.
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 And so I think that the bigger picture is really trusting your process, trusting your inner guidance, and that just because you develop discernment doesn't mean that everything's going to be pain-free, but it can keep you from experiencing some unnecessary suffering for sure. But again, that's where this connection, this deeper anchoring into your heart and into that source of the love itself is everything. Because when that is guiding you and it's not just like, oh, I'm lonely or I miss having somebody or, the nights are hard or whatever it is. It's when that's not guiding you, when you're just like, I'm going to go deeper into my fullness, into my radiance, the things that help me to feel more alive. Because I'm going to be, okay, I will say this, Kevin. So because I am in a new partnership and nobody knows who it is yet. It's a great secret to be revealed. But before this came into my life, I was in a place of such fullness and joy and completion. So there wasn't like what can I do to manifest my partner so that I can feel like a whole woman? No, I was like, I have so many places to pour my love into. All of my kids, of course, myself, my friends, my family. And I didn't have a feeling of lacking anything. And so when my friends found out about this, they were like, of course this happened to you in this way because you were it. Like you were it. And then this person met you there. So I won't be someone who will preach like, here's how to manifest your partner. I'll be like, here's how do you manifest your own joy? That's already there, but you just kind of forgot how to access it. And then everything else is going to be clicking in accordance to that.
I absolutely love that. And it's so true. The state in which we meet people in is usually like the state in which the relationship will go. I've noticed, at least in my own life, more often than not. And I love the bit about not shaming yourself for what you're attracting, because whether there's more there for you or, again, maybe somebody keeps stepping over your boundaries and it's like, well, you get to integrate and embody setting boundaries, right? And seeing it as the perfect partner to do that with, and the perfect gift and the perfect opportunity, I think, instead of frustrated that it's happening again. I don't know. What do you think that is? Or what's your frame on the meaning of relationships?
Well, that was part of what dropped into one of the slides that I shared yesterday. Yesterday? Yeah, yesterday. About how, you know how there's that Eckhart Tolle quote on, it was something like, once I realized that the purpose of relationship wasn't to make me happy, but to make me more conscious, I could see the self-mastery and everything. Does that sound familiar? Something like that. Yeah.
I love it.
I was sitting with that, and especially in the context of my life right now. And I was like, you know what? I don't fully agree with that. But why? Like, what is there? What is there that is meant to come through me? And so what I said yesterday was, I feel like the purpose of relationship isn't healing or growth or to become more conscious. All of that stuff just happens. Because the thing is, if the purpose is to just expand our capacity and our awareness of love, not love the feeling, the emotion, the I want to be with you forever, but like this higher love that is bigger than us. If the purpose of relationship is just to uncover more of that and be more like full of it, then love will do the healing. Love will do the growth. It'll catalyze the growth. It will awaken the consciousness. And so to me, that's the purpose of relationship, is like just to bring us back to the knowing of that love. And sometimes it happens in painful ways. It's like, oh, here's this thing that you're abandoning yourself in again and again and again. And that's why this is coming back to you in this connection as well.
Right. It's unearthing all the ways that the flow of love, really what you're saying, the flow of love or the access you have to your own aliveness and love isn't there, and awakening that or shining light on it, or that's a beautiful frame.
Yeah, and we tend to get with partners that,
sorry, there's a little bit of a lag, but just taking the pressure off of
there's
needing
a lag.
to do all the healing, right? Like needing to do all the healing or all the work. It like you said, it'll just happen. And that's so true. And I think it puts the focus back on love instead of, okay, what do we need to fix and where do we need in the patterns? I know people like that. They're just like savagely ready to like do the work. And I'm like, it's going to happen, dude. Chill out.
It sucks all the joy out of life. It's like, hey, come on, like just live a little. But yeah, we're so scared. Like, they're like, how do I fix myself before getting into my next relationship so that I don't experience any discomfort? It's like, you don't. Like, you know what I notice now, though, in this connection is that, sorry, I have a sprout in my teeth, is that there is such a sensitivity to the energy alive between us. It's not just like a sensitivity to my state and my energy, where like, if I'm agitated, he'll shut down and be like, oh, don't want to upset mommy, because a lot of men have that. A lot of men have that, and vice versa. The little girl in the women doesn't want to be too much for daddy, and I know that this might be a little bit on the edges for people listening, but maybe not. This is your podcast, and maybe not. But there's that, like, we have to be present with those discomforts and be like, you know what, this is, I got to reveal my heart about this and trust that he can hold that. Again, there's a difference between revealing your heart and just like spewing lava all over somebody, but that's a different vein of conversation. But when there's such a sensitivity in the energy, what I've noticed that's really been beautiful for my expansion is that, it's like the moment that I remember, like, oh, it's not that I'm missing something from him, because I go through this mental process of like, even if he did X, Y, Z, really great right now in this moment, that actually wouldn't give me what I'm needing deeper. Like, what is that? Like, oh, there's this part of myself that needs me to connect with her, or there's a form of expression that my body needs right now, or I just need to like be more conscious of, be more aware of this, like the father, the mother presence in my life, whatever. It's like the moment that I have that remembrance, the energy between us shift. And it literally impacts the way that he shows up. It's wild. Like, I've never experienced anything like this. And so I feel like before there was kind of a lag. It'd be like the day, let me show up different. Not to inspire the other person to show up differently, but just because I want to feel at peace and I want to feel good. And then eventually he would be like, okay, there's a shift. I'm talking like immediate problems. So it's just blowing my mind. But just so that people know that there is a synergistic thing happening in every connection, whether it's this or whether it's like my kid's teacher at school. How you show up shapes a lot. It doesn't control everything, but it shapes things really, really, really deeply.
It's so true. I've noticed that's taking leadership in a lot of ways. That's stepping in and saying, I'm choosing how I'm going to show up to this, and how you show up to it. It changes the energy between y'all because one part has changed, right? It's like part of that alchemical.
And if you, yes, exactly. It's the alchemy. And if you go into it, especially with women, I hear this a lot. If we go into it with the mentality of like, well, damn, why do I have to be the one to do blah, blah, blah? Like, no, you don't have to do anything. Like, I get to do this for my own peace, for my own ease, not so that I can manipulate him. Because you see, the energy gets real distorted there. And that's more of that distorted feminine that we see, where she's like, how can I show up this way so that he will do this? And that's not inspiring him to whatever. It's an attempt to control. And he will feel that. Even if he's not a conscious awakened man or whatever, like this deeper part of him will feel that.
And so what do you feel when it comes to communication is the come from? What is because more so than like tools and skills and say this, but like when you approach communication now or with help supporting clients through this, what are some like fundamental principles that you, like a worldview, I guess, of how you approach these things? Again, so you don't self-abandon, so you're able to speak up, so you're able to create connection through the conversations.
Oh, that's a great question. So first, again, is that self-reflecting space. Is that space for me? I know that I can be really fucking in depth. Okay, like I know this about me. Like more than half of my chart is in Sagittarius, another half is in Scorpio. Like it's like it's a lot. So I love this about me, and I also know how destructive it can be. So I think that we can't really be a channel or a vessel for this love until we actually get real with ourselves about how much havoc we can wreak. Yes, that's the word. About how much destruction we can create. What we're capable of. Like, oof, that's hard to look at. So anyways, that aside, first thing, going into this space and giving myself the permission to express, move energy, do whatever, tap into some, a specific energy. So for example, for years now, this specifically in the last couple of years, have been working much more intimately with this consciousness of the mother. So like this great mother, unconditional love, unconditional holding and acceptance. And she holds me. And I'm like, what am I not seeing? And she doesn't make me wrong for anything. She just loves me. And I've learned how to love through her, actually, through this connection. And so then I don't have to be all calm, cool, and collected. I don't have to be like, I'm good now, but this thing happened. I can be in it still, but I've developed it. I've like gone into the cavern and gotten some wisdoms out so that I can bring that back to the space. Be like, hey, when you did this, here's the deeper wound that was triggered. I just like felt this wave of shame, or I felt this voice in my head that was like, you're hard to love. And I realized that was my father's voice as a kid. That was the energy that he gave me. So when you didn't show up for this is what I felt. So I'm not making him wrong. Like you did something bad or you're like a horrible person. Like it's like, this is my heart. And for me to expose my heart, there is vulnerability. There is courage. There is an element of like, you could reject me for this. You could think I'm weak. You could think I'm small. And I'm willing to risk that so that I can be seen. And I can't tell you how many times I've literally said the words to him, like, I just want you to see me. I actually don't need you to do anything about it. And sometimes it is a request of like, hey, next time I'm in this space, are you open to doing this? So there's a level of nervous system regulation. Yes. There's a level of self-awareness. And then there's a level of willingness to be vulnerable.
And it's also personal responsibility. You're going to yourself and your parts first, having that clarity and then bringing that forward versus a reactionary space. or pushing it away and avoiding. You're able to like confront it and be vulnerable and show yourself to him. I'm deducting that it's because you're also like, okay, what part of me is this? And through your mother, like having that lens, your inner mother, right? Having that lens to hold yourself and then show up in the fullness of all of you. It's like, this is true. And also this is true. And this is actually probably the deeper truth. And here, I just want to be seen in it.
Yeah, exactly. Exactly. And there's something that I also bring to the work with women a lot, is that just because you feel it really intensely and really big, and it feels like it's going to consume your whole existence, just because you feel it doesn't mean that it's the truth. And so we want to honor the realness of the feeling, the feeling of that, like, oh, this feels like the most real thing ever because it's so present in you. And also hold this other reality of, okay, but is it the truth? What is the truth inside of those emotions? Because a lot of times women, we will get, well, anybody, but it's just that I happen to work through this with women more than men, this particular thing. We will get kind of, we'll stay on the surface of it and be like, I'm just angry and he needs to see my rage. And it's like, okay, but does that actually serve you? Because that's what you're trying, like one part of you is trying to do. Does that serve the relationship? Does that serve the vision? Does that serve like the vision you have for yourself as a woman? Because there are times for intensity, but maybe it's not as many times as we think.
There's a lot here on discernment. I'd love for you to talk a little bit about how you find discernment in these things, how you've gotten to that point, because I've said a similar thing of like, there's your truth and then there's your capital T truth, which higher truth and the real truth, right? But how have you found discernment in that? How do you guide other people in finding that discernment? Because again, the more discerning we are of our own inner parts and our own inner experience, the more discerning we can be for the things that we get into, hence the discussion of getting in the right relationship, for example.
Yeah. I think a lot of it does come with just real life practice. Honestly, that's the answer that I would have hated to hear a few years ago. But it's like being willing to, like be in the game, get your hands dirty, and then be like, actually, oh, I can feel the difference in my body between this and this. Like I can feel this is, for me personally, it's like my pendulum, my inner pendulum. There is a place in my physical body where I feel things when it's like a deep resonant soul yes. And so when I feel the chaos of my emotions just like everywhere else, and I'm like on fire and I'm this big ball of explosive fire, if I don't feel this like something in that spot, like physically, it's like on my cervix, it's like in my womb, like really, really, really deep. And when I feel that resonant yes in there, or like this is the decision, that's how actually I knew that it was time to end my marriage. That's how I knew. It wasn't in the middle of a storm. It wasn't in chaos. It wasn't in anger. It was a deep knowing. And I felt it and I was like, okay, I know what needs to be done. And that was literally a matter of me abandoning myself or him abandoning himself. And talk about like scared to get it wrong. In the aftermath, I was like, wait, is this? No. But then my guides would keep pointing me back and giving me more like, nope, keep going. This is for you. Like, keep going. And so there is so much trust and surrender involved as well. And also just a deeper attunement to your body, which comes with practice. And the more that you do allow yourself the space to work through your stuff in your sacred little private space, the more you learn how to distinguish between this is the feelings and this is my deeper truth. So it really, for me, has been a very daily practice.
I love that. There's the feelings and then there's the deeper truth. That's a level of attunement to self and an awareness that would serve a lot of people. I mean, I'm just saying that because, and for everybody listening, this has served me tremendously in my life, to not get caught up in the emotions of how I'm feeling. And how I relate to it right now presently is it's like there's all these emotions, but they're on top of a foundation of a deeper truth. It's like, yeah, I'm extremely pissed off and I'm angry and but I'm also just really trusting and full of love and I get it, I see it, but I'm still allowing that thing to be there. And I think also that denotes like the ability to hold multiple truths at the same time. And it's not just one extreme or the other. And yeah, that has served me tremendously.
Yeah, the extremes. The thing is that sometimes when people try to get to that deeper truth by bypassing their emotions, and that just creates more barriers to your inner wisdom, because you're keeping things like trapped and enclosed and not giving it space to flow. And sometimes, the first few years that someone starts to tap into just their emotions, it can be really messy. And so just still giving themselves a lot of grace and a lot of space.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm. And again, all of this work and all the inner work and all that we're doing and what we're talking about on this podcast is to open the flow and the feeling of more love through you. If you're open to sharing, I mean, where are you at in that process? What's some stuff that you're working on, whether it's with clients or even in your personal life, to open even more as somebody who's been on this path for a while?
Yeah. What I have found is that it feels even more vulnerable to me to let myself be witnessed in my pleasure, in my ease, in my complete openness. Like, there are things happening in my physical body I cannot explain, Kevin. I don't get it. I'm just letting it happen. And I'm just like, wow. I'm marveling at it. It's like, what? Something new with you every day. I'm like, I know, isn't it amazing? So it's just like really letting it be good. I think that there is so much like a badge of honor attached to the struggle and the healing process. And like making life and your relationships this whole like fix it project, because we like to have problems to fix. When we can acknowledge that we love to have problems to fix, that will just that will free up a lot of energy. When I acknowledge that to myself, I was like, you know what? I think that I like to be a problem solver, and then I need to have problems to solve. So of course I'm having this and this and this, but to be in a space where I can just let it be good. I can let it just be like flow with more ease. That doesn't mean that everything is easy or exactly like your highest potential, but there is a level of peace and of trust that allows you to be more open. And in that, for me, the expansion currently is just in being in the ease and not feeling like I need to get back into some struggling thing just to have something to overcome. And again, that doesn't mean that life doesn't give you challenges. It's just a different mentality.
Right. I can relate so much to that. Holy shit. I'm in a season right now of like, oh, wow, why was I making that hard on myself? I don't want to do that anymore. It gets to be easy. Like really prioritizing how things feel and my own sense of peace more than that part of me that loved to, as you were saying, like solve a problem or be triumphant and overcome something. It's like, I've overcome a lot. I got the track record to show it. I don't need any more overcoming it right now. So I just want to say I relate a lot. I'd love to know.
There's nothing to prove.
No, there's nothing to prove at all. I'd love to know, the work that you do with your clients, what all does that involve? And also what you got coming up right now?
Yes. So when I work with people, it is so specific to what they are navigating. I do see different trends in different seasons. Like, for example, at the end of 2023, beginning of 2024, there were a lot of endings of relationships. And that was the common theme. So I help them navigate these like more as much as possible, like conscious uncoupling, really, really releasing each other with gratitude. And yes, feeling the rage and the grief and all of the intense stuff like I did as well. But also holding this higher truth of like, this is for the best of the bigger vision. So helping them with that. And then in this season, there's a lot of new connections. And so I'm actually having more of those conversations and supporting people in staying open and how can they, embody more of this love and work through the real life challenges. Because, when you got kids and you got school and you got routines and you've got, whatever, blended families, stuff like that, like there's real life stuff. We don't skip over that. But everything is so personal to each person and each couple, each situation. And then what I have coming up, I do have, well, this is in just a few days from now. So by the people listening to this, this will already have happened. But I do have a workshop on how to anchor deeper into love and expand within relationship without abandoning yourself. I'm sure I will have a replay for that by the time this podcast comes out. So all of that would be on my website. And then I have a women's retreat coming up in November here in Ecuador, in the Amazon basin.
Epic. You're on to epic things, that's for sure. I just want to say thank you for coming on the podcast and sharing your heart, your wisdom. All of this stuff was so beautiful and juicy and amazing. We went on a lot of awesome places, and I hope a lot of people got a lot out of this.
Thank you. And thank you for having me here, Kevin, and for everyone who tuned in.